Okay, ready for takeoff. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. We know it's pretty late today and you heard a lot of presentations. Hopefully we can manage to give you some interesting half an hour from now. With me there are quite some people willing to answer questions. And the topic for today is, we talked about Industry 4.0 and we heard about capabilities and methodologies, etc., with concrete examples coming from industry and academia. But we aren't sure whether we touched everything and whether we do know enough about the future. What do we mean? Industry 4.0 is not just technology. There are other things which are needed if you want to manage success in the market. And if I may start with you, Marc, and we had a discussion earlier on. We talked about education and skill profiles, which are so important for industry partners. What do you think? Is the preparation of people good enough so that you, as an industry representative, receive the skills you need to manage your future success?
I discussed it with some audience in the coffee break. What we recognize and notice that the education in the universities is still missing a well-educated 4.0 style. That means we develop sophisticated drives and automation systems, and we need very well-educated engineers, and we see that they are not able to bring the basics with them to develop these systems or these devices. And what we are doing is we are not employ bachelor degrees in the moment. We employ only master degrees. This is a pity circumstances that we have to cope with. This is a strategy, but we have to consider also the internal education of the employees. When we develop and produce such technology, also our employees need to be educated in these things. So from our perspective, we have to discuss not just the technical side of Industry 4.0, we have to talk about Education 4.0, Healthcare 4.0, and also, for example, Sales 4.0, because we have to sell such products with the well-educated employees. And I guess, and I would like that the education in Germany and also the universities cope with these new circumstances in order to provide well-educated employees.
Marc, this, just for my own understanding, so what you're asking for is not just technology skills, it's skills on different industries, for example, or business models. Doesn't that require interdisciplinary cooperation?
Yeah, correct, yeah. We need a broader scope of certain industries, and the employees or the engineers need to be a part of many industries and many branches to understand what we have to do in the future.
Okay, this is a good hint and a good question being asked to Stefan Witte, the Vice President of the University in Lemgo. Stefan, how do you deal with that? How do you manage this challenge being given by industry?
Yeah, Interesting question, and it's really a point where I have to say that we have to go between two ways at least. Of course, when we talk about Industry 4.0, we have different capabilities, or the students or the engineers need different skills. We have to do the informatics side, we have to talk about the Internet of Things, we have to know all these technologies, but when they come from the production side, it is also expected that they are very well in doing the production and doing the machineries and all this stuff. So at least we have to see how to bring these things together, and the other requirement is they should do it in a short time. The bachelor takes three years and 2 additional years for the master study. So this is a point where we, of course, have to deal with. We do it at our University of Applied Sciences on 2 sides. I would say, first of all, we involve students in very early phases already in projects dealing with this stuff. We have our Smart Factory OWL, where they work in really early stages in projects handling with these questions. But very often this is, of course, not enough. And sometimes the answer is, yes, it is a big topic, and this big topic needs teams from different science parts. So we need the interdisciplinarity, and this is the big challenge to teach them how to work in such teams. This is also very important, and to understand at least the language in the different disciplines, which is also not very easy. From my side, I had to do a project with life science technologies, and it was a problem to talk about the same things in the first steps. Yeah.
Is it fair to say that traditional universities and systems in universities being applied do not support interdisciplinary work?
No, it's not fair, I think, because from the very beginning we now have these kind of project teams. We call it virtual enterprises, where the students have to do in the very beginning already, let's say, things like product development steps, and there you have people from different disciplinaries. But this is still something which is on the way, I would say, and this might be also different from university to university, because of course the basic is that they have the basic knowledge in their discipline, because it makes no sense if you have an electric engineer who is not able to do some design of electrical circuits and so on. So this is the point we have to solve. And we have to solve it, I would say, together with the industry partners, because the requirements is something which also needs exchange between the different partners in this group.
Fair statement. I think this is not something which is unique for universities. You should have the same situation in your enterprise, don't you? So that you've got people in different disciplines, in development departments, sales, service, for example. How do you prepare them for being able to deal the challenges of Industry 4.0?
Of course, we have our engineering teams, we have our product management teams, we have production planning, we have quality planning, we have the laboratory, and so on. Many different competencies, many different people, many different specialists from all these disciplines, and they have jointly to work together to get a comprehensive result out of it. And that's the challenge in my point of view. So Weidmüller has founded an academy about 10 years ago. And in this institution, we get all the people together and bring them further on, covering their competencies, especially working together, especially systems engineering, for example, or project management. These are skills which are somehow not comfortable for the specialist, and the specialist tries to stick in his core competencies. That's what he knows, this is what he understands, and he's somehow shy to leave these competencies. But this is what we need, and this is what we expect from our people to bring this into their daily business.
And do you think that your people are open? So what is your observation? Because I had a discussion with the chairman of your workers' council yesterday, and he said that all the people are open, which came as a surprise to me, because that's not the normal case. in my opinion. So what's your observation?
So in general, I would say they are open. So somehow you have to get them experience to it. You have to take them on your hand and lead them to new technologies. So if you talk to a machine operator who dealt with truly mechanical machines for 20 years of his business life, and from tomorrow on he should deal with numerical controlled machines or with computerized machines. This is a big challenge for him, and therefore we take people out of the teams and get them to new technologies and try to get them well known with it. These are young people from our scholarships, for example, but these are experienced workers as well. And I think if you get dedicated people out of it, and if you get them motivated, if you get them interested into new technologies, then this will be a success.
Okay, before we come to Tanja, I would like to ask Harald from the UK whether there are some specialities we might learn from in the UK. Have you got something extra which we didn't mention so far in terms of education and preparing young people or even experienced people for the challenges of digitalization?
I wouldn't say there are any big surprises or the solution how to do it. I think on the positive side, I would say it's been at least recognized the importance of education. And as you probably know, the academic education in the UK is at a very high level. But the further down you go, for many years there hasn't been any apprenticeship programs. And the government started a few years ago really supporting apprenticeships again. And our academy that we have now as well, our training center, is very much going into that direction. So I wouldn't say that we have anything specific, but we most definitely realize that you can't do business if you don't have the people actually along the whole value chain within your own company. And it's not only about academic and technology leadership, it's actually the people that do it very well. And therefore, what's been recognized and what the top priorities where Industry 4 comes in. So Industry 4 has a probably quite bright future in the UK. But not as Industry 4 or digital manufacturing, but in supporting productivity. And that is the biggest expectation for digital manufacturing in the UK, because closing the productivity gap to some of the other leading manufacturing countries, that is one of the main focuses of UK. And it doesn't happen without education across the board.
Nevertheless, there are a few things which you might learn from the UK. When you mentioned this morning the huge investment being taken by politicians into infrastructure like training facilities, and I had the chance to visit that. This is really impressive, and that's something which we want to fight for as well. And perhaps we need your support in the future to even convince politicians that things are possible if you just do them.
You know, the way things go is everything is good that is to mutual benefit. I think that possibly some good things we could benefit from as well. Okay. So not giving up.
Okay. So Tanja, as you just arrived from Singapore 2 hours ago, and she's still awake, so thank you so much that you joined us today. Perhaps you give us a chance to learn something about you and your company. And the question I wanted to raise is, I know something about your business, the others don't so far, but Industry 4.0 or digitalization does something with your business, especially in cooperation with your customers. Can you give us some insight?
Yes, happily. Thank you for having me here and inviting me. No way is too far for you, so thank you. Okay, just to introduce me very quickly, I'm the owner of a pure software company, so I'm coming from the other side now, the more virtual side, and we are specialized in advanced analytics. So we are interpreting real-time data streams, unlimited data streams, to ensure quality, to make sure nothing is going wrong. So we are doing predictive interpretation as well, using machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence, for example. So how did Industry 4.0 influence my business? Well, Resolto has been existing now since 2003, so that was long before all this talk about Industry 4.0 started. We always dealt with algorithms, we always had computer scientists working for us. Some of them are no more data scientists, which is a new job in this particular field. And we realized that the way we can approach customers and also the internationality we are working in now is totally different, because we are, as a small German company, still so advanced because of all the educational support, because of the great colleagues of mine that I got from the university in our region. And now when I come to Singapore and I speak with these people, they are looking at us and say, wow, you are so advanced, we should really work together. So for me it's very flattering, being a small company, now all of a sudden working with huge corporations all over the world, which is new.
So I wouldn't describe it to be windfall profit. So you deserve it because you're so competent with your company. During the break, we had a short chat, and you said that there's one speciality on whom to approach with companies. So if you want to convince customers to do a digital transformation, for example, whom are you talking to?
I'm always talking to the board of management now, which is a little bit bizarre, because in the old days they wouldn't even offered me a coffee, yeah? And now all of a sudden we're highly welcome. And what I recognize is the companies that have the management attention in the subject, they succeed with it, they make progress. If you start from bottom up, it becomes very difficult, because you have some particular experts that love the subject, but they don't have the budget, they don't have the time. If the CEO loves it, there you go. Then everything works all of a sudden. You have the people behind you. And that is really it. I mean, every CEO that I get chance to speak with, I always say, okay, you must take time for that. It's a strategical decision for your company. Everything will change. Your company will change as well. Take influence.
So it's the tone from the top, been said by the CEO.
Definitely, because it is so highly strategical, the whole thing.
Yeah. And remember the governance structure of the cluster I raised this morning. We are just talking with the CEOs or the owners of the companies. Why? Same reason for that. Thorsten, you're new as well. Give us a chance to learn something about you. And the question I want to raise is, I know that you're pretty much on your way internationally, and we Germans seem to have a tendency, or Europeans seem to have a tendency to do things from a technology level upwards, while Americans seem to have a different approach coming from software and applications. What is your observation? Is there a trap, or is there a trick? Or what should we do?
Mm-hmm. Okay. First of all, let me introduce briefly, because I'm new at stage today. So I'm CEO of a quite similar organization like its OVL cluster management. It's called EffizienzCluster Management, GmbH, and we are one of the leading edge clusters in the second round of the leading edge cluster competition. We started in 2010, and I'm also CEO of this management company from April 2010 onwards. Our cluster is very much focusing on logistics, supply chain, engineering, and everything which is outside manufacturing production, but well, making sure that production will run, that no one runs out of material and so on. And we are quite closely linked to one Fraunhofer Institute in Dortmund. It's the Fraunhofer Institute of Material Flow and Logistics. Doing this job since the last 6 years, I am also quite proud that from a couple of months ago, we started also another initiative out of our EffizienzCluster, which is really very much close to Industry 4. It's called Industrial Data Space, and it deals with the topic of data sovereignty in a completely digitized and networked world. This has definitely to do with automation and autonomous systems as well. So now coming back to your question, Günter. I think we are also in our EffizienzCluster and in all these activities quite much focused on technology. And especially my friends from Fraunhofer, they love their technology, and this sometimes is really, I would say, it's a problem. It's a challenge, at least. And for me, I think this is also the reason why I was asked in 2010 to guide this EffizienzCluster, because when we ask in the room, and there were maybe 90% Fraunhofer people sitting around, well, now we need someone to lead this initiative and also think about how earning money with it. Then they left the room. And so, no, but I think this is really one side of the medal. I think these view from the customer, which we can found in all these methodologies of design thinking and so on, is really important, and it really drives initiatives when you also try to take the point or look from the view of the customers. And this is, I think, a difference. And if you bring these worlds together, then I think it is quite good. Saying this, in the Industrial Data Space Initiative, we turn it again from the other side, because this is a user association, because we say, and I think it was earlier in the presentation of the colleague from Phoenix Contact, who said, well, the Internet of Things, Internet is everything the global companies, especially from the US or maybe from Asia, can do, but the things, this is maybe a typical European domain, and therefore in industrial data space, well, there is this group of 25 big manufacturing companies from Europe who say, okay, we want to deal this or look at this topic from a user perspective, and bringing those together, I think, brings then really progress.
But would you agree that safety with regards to data is the deal maker or breaker, especially for SMEs?
Well, I would say so, maybe not safety, but sovereignty on your data. Because, I mean, I come from a region in North Rhine-Westphalia, it's called Sauerland. It's really countryside, and we have a lot of small companies. And we talked about SMEs, but have you looked on the turnover of these companies? In my point of view, they are really not SMEs. Yeah? So my neighbor owns a company with 25 employees, and he has only one product. It is wire. So he's pulling wire, and maybe you all know the product, because he delivers the smallest and thinnest wire you can imagine, and it is used for interdental brushes. So there are only 3 producers of interdental brushes. And what does this company with 25 people from Sauerland? Well, they pull the wire so small and in a good quality that only 3 companies in the world can produce this wire, which is used to produce interdental brushes. So this is definitely a very analog business. But now comes the point. The challenge is really that these companies are not even aware what digital technologies can mean for their business in a couple of years. So they have no computer in their company. Only the secretary has a computer, and she uses it twice a day, okay, to type in the new prices which the CEO negotiates at the golf course. Okay, so this is really analog business. But now it comes. Now, one of the customer of these companies producing these interdental brushes was bought by a US corporation. I think it was Procter & Gamble, maybe. Now they invited the CEO of this company to take part in a workshop to bring all the data of the products into a digital procurement platform. What should he do now? Maybe, this is definitely a challenge. And he told me this, and now I really think that the majority of SMEs, which are really, really small, are not even aware of the challenge of digitalization. So I think there's a lot to do in the broad mass of companies, concerning the too sensitive to bring them into this framework of digitalization.
I'd agree so far that there's plenty of work to be done in the future. Marc, what he described a bit, or at least he touched on, is a go-to-market strategy. So if someone's got an innovative technology and he might be even a technology leader in his respective market sector, that doesn't automatically mean that he'll become successful in the market. And you raised early on that there are funding schemes coming from ministries and federal government pretty much focusing on technology, and what you are missing is something supporting this go-to-market activities. Can you give us some explanation on that?
It's very difficult for traditional SMEs that you get a market step or get a new market share or market step with new technologies. We can develop smart devices and smart technologies, but the point is you have to sell it. And especially SMEs, or my SME has a challenge to sell and promote such new technology because it's not very accepted at a very big customer. Tanja, do you speak with CEOs? And if I want to speak with a CEO from Daimler or from Porsche,
ask me.
yeah, not me. I don't know why. and this is our problem, because some of our customers require very huge brands, and especially in the drive technology environment, they require very big brands, and we have to deal with it, and we have to do that in a smarter way. And from that reason, we are looking for new business models. Also the leading edge cluster is supporting the technology development. And I wish for the future that they can support also sales activities, especially for SMEs. This is my wish for the future.
I think that's really a gap, because it's not in the scope so far, and in the future strategy we'll have two additional topics. One is IT security, and the second one is business models, including, of course, which are go-to-market strategies. So that's the good news for you.
That could be a way for the future to promote and sell the new business model for SMEs in general.
But we won't take away your enterprise or your entrepreneurial responsibility. This will reside with you. So
Günter,
that's the bad news.
I'm aware of it.
Stefan, you wrote, before we came here, you wrote something which I need to look at. Digitalization and Internet of Things will change economy and society. Can you give us some insight on why and how?
I really think that this will happen, and maybe may I take the example from the Sauerland with the tea brushes. And now just imagine that everyone from us has different spaces between the teas, and everyone wants to have his special individual tea brush. So the producer of these things has to have a totally different business model and a totally different complete production system to enable these individualization. The other point is we have so much data, we have so much let's see, advanced possibilities to get information from this data, which was not possible before because we didn't have these data. But these data will also lead to totally new information about everybody from us. So the question, what is my privacy, what will become a question. And the other question, maybe even for small and medium-sized companies, who is owner of all this data and who has access. From the internet we have a lot of access, everybody can get the information. Is this also possible for the different data we produce in the world? These might be a critical path and a special idea with totally new, let's say, business models at least. And work will change, and as work will change, also society will change. We have a lot of assistance systems, we have a lot of expert systems which we today have, and I think even the people working in production will get another kind of jobs than today. And the last point, it was also mentioned in some presentation this morning. These things we do in the Industry 4.0 in the production environment today will go to all the other fields. I think Phoenix mentioned health, mentioned living and different things. And even food is a point where I expect that this will change the totally value chain and of food production and distribution maybe.
But that means that you need additional partners and new forms of cooperations. If you want to approach new industries, then you've got to have experts coming from other industries, something which you are already working on?
Yes, indeed. To handle all these things, this needs partnerships and this needs cooperation. We do it in the leading edge cluster, as you know, and I think in UK they do it in the catapult principles. And we are also working on building up or setting up these clusters and corporations even in other fields, let's say in the food field or in the field how to live in rural environments, and all these questions needs special things, and we are going to set up these networks at least.
Thank you. Jan, I've got 4 more questions. One goes to Jan. As Weidmüller is part of our cluster organization from day one, and was really pushing and promoting that a cluster even was brought into life. On a scale 1 to 10, and 10 is the best score, where are you with Weidmüller so far regarding Industry 4.0, if you want to say something?
Heavy question.
The question is pretty easy. The answer may be the tricky one.
Frankly said, this is quite different. Depends on in which area of business and in which plant you dive in. So, of course, we have a lot of good examples for Industry 4.0 technologies. For example, what we realized in ITS OVL, like our self-optimizing punch bending machine, or the topics covering industrial analytics, which I presented this morning. I would say we are quite far in implementing Industry 4.0 technologies, obvious. So on the other hand, we are quite traditional factory, we have quite traditional production technologies, we have quite traditional products, a terminal block, one wire in, one wire out, just a screw inside and clamping this together. This is not Industry 4.0, and this is not realized in Industry 4.0 technologies, on the other hand. So the spectrum is quite heterogeneous, quite different.
May I interrupt and raise another question relating to that? Does that mean, in concrete words, that parts of your production or your company won't be affected by industry even in the future? Or does it just mean that you didn't touch on it so far?
They will be affected in a very different manner, in very different technologies. On the one hand, Weidmüller is a supplier of mass production. For example, one of the high runner terminal blocks, which we produce for 25 years, is produced in about 40 million pieces per year. So these are truly mechanized and automated processes. And of course, we do not need any flexibility into these processes. But on the other hand, of course, we take a lot of benefit from industrial analytics in these processes. For one example, the next example are products which we sell in quite small amounts. And there, of course, we try benefit from flexibility and from numerized control technologies into our production processes. So you have to, if you talk on Industry 4.0, you have to be very, very dedicated and very focused on talking what you want to realize and talking which benefit you try to realize. And therefore, it's quite difficult to answer this scale from 1 to 10.
So I'll let you away with that answer. So, Tanja, as he said that parts of this organization may be touched earlier or later, and that developments will be seen maybe later on, or there's no additional impact to mass production, for example, in low-cost areas or so. Are there any industries which you would say they won't be affected by Industry 4.0 at all?
I think it's more a question of time. I mean, there are industries that feel still very confident and they say, oh wow, this is so far away from us, and go away with your all Amazon examples, that is so not us. I mean, especially when you are purely dealing B2B, they might have a feeling of calmness there, but it's of course nonsense. I mean, especially in B2B, where the processes are getting more and more digital and speed is everything, and in the end of the day you have to compete and somebody starts. And there will be attacks coming from areas that you don't even expect at the moment. So I can only recommend to anyone to be very aware, because we have seen huge companies vanishing for smaller reason. Right, but I can see there is a difference. Some are very fast, some see the risks and they really go for it, and they think very agile already, which is different for industry. Usually they always said, well, we invest and then the investment has to last for 20 years, so everything's really slow, at least maybe 30. I mean, you know Siemens, and you have always been dealing with customers like that. So if you don't make the switch quickly and you start to think agile, you will be bitten by the dogs in the end, right? So no, the answer is no. I think everybody will be affected by this, definitely.
I'd fully agree with that. Harald, in the UK, a part of Brexit, if there are other important things, what is the next big thing in the UK which we didn't mention so far and which has got to do with industrialization?
The next big thing, well, first of all, Brexit is one thing. Just trying to tell people nothing has changed. Actually, the message comes through, so I'm looking quite forward optimistically. The two M's will sort it out, our pastor's daughter, if they still be there in a year's time. But the next big thing, and in listening to all that, is there are some challenges for the UK. As I showed this morning, it's seen in the UK as the fourth industrial revolution, and manufacturing is just a part in that. And therefore, I would agree when you said it will affect everybody, whether they want it or not. And the only thing is get prepared for it, and rather sooner than later, because it will happen at some point. As I said, there's a lot of investment in bringing manufacturing back. The very first slide you showed, Günter, that Germany dropped a bit. The UK dropped even a bit more on that table, but it is understood real values only can create benefit for our country. And as I said earlier on today as well, the approach from government is very much about looking at investments from a point of return on invest, and only where UK PLC will have a benefit, the government is investing. However, so far it's clear that that is something to close this productivity gap. But the big things for UK particularly, I think, still are in education, not only in the thing what I said before on a workshop level. It's a lot in mentality as well, and how you actually deal with your workforce and the changes in the whole work environment. Because in a particular way, you can look at the UK not only geographically sitting between the center of Europe and the US. So if you look, for example, the legal system and other things, but very much some kind of mentality is somewhere in between as well. And we talk a lot about more skills for people, train them even higher and so on. But training them is one thing, but make sure they stay in your company is another thing. And that people are not aware of. And this thing of, which is quite common in the US, about hire and fire, it turns around the other way as well. Because people very easily swap jobs in the UK because they get a bit more money somewhere else. And I think it's a different culture, and that's something, a big challenge for, I would say personally, what I've seen, and it's been mentioned by a few people, is start to realize what industry for digital manufacturing bring around as well, with these highly qualified people. How can you actually make sure, bind them to your company so they're not going away? And corporate identity, things that are very highly evaluated in German industry are not I wouldn't say they're not existing, but they're not existing in the UK to the extent they are in Germany. And I think there's a lot that needs to be done. Not only qualify your people, but make sure they use their qualifications in your company and not in the competitors or running off elsewhere in the world. So I think that's some big things to come, how the work environment will change, and it will change, but it will change from different ways. You can look from the upside down, but you look from the bottom up as well. For qualified people, there will be better opportunities to choose where they're going, and I'm sure people will make the choice and decide where they want to go and work.
That's really funny, because you're bridging in an ideal way to my last question. The DNA of OWL is not that employees are swapping their jobs easily. They don't change jobs at all, which is an asset and maybe a burden at the same time. And that's the question. Last question goes to Thorsten. So what is the value of experience which is 10 or 20 years old, and how does it help to prepare for Industry 4.0 and the challenges of digitalization? Because I really think that's sort of a trap. If people remain 20 years in the same job, how do they get their new impulses?
Well, this is really also a hard question, but I only can answer it from some experiences we observed during the last months. Because maybe for your information, since the beginning of this year, ITS OWL and EffizienzCluster and University of Aachen are running a kind of SME enabling center. So this is also a quite interesting challenge, and we have exclusively deal with this situation. And yes, I mean, I explained this this example from Sauerland, and of course there are also the people dealing with exactly this issue. But on the one hand, the people really feel quite safe and secure in their environment, and maybe this is also a positive circumstance that you can really work with them. Yeah, you can introduce it, and once the managing director or whatever says, okay, now we got it and we have to change it, you can be sure that they invest in this topic, and they do not even stop after 6 months or so when they say, okay, we cannot earn money with it. They will work on it until they really see the horizon. Maybe this is one advantage, and yes, I mean there is a lot of work to do, stimulating and motivating, and always also demonstrating on these issues of Industry 4. I think if you really can feel and make things tangible, then you can also, buy in people to work with this issue and to deal with the future challenge.
Thank you for this answer. If you allow, I think we are running out of time, therefore please allow me to summarize a bit. I think it's fair to say that, and that was part of your explanations as well, we shouldn't be frightened. Explicitly you said, be open and be active, and don't wait before someone will give you 100% solution, because this won't show up, like Godot, he never shows up. So learn as you go, be brave, and try to do the best with your business, because if you are not trying to cannibalize your business, someone else will do it. So thank you very much, and thank to all of you for your good answers, and for allowing me to give you some sort of challenges. Thank you so much.